Welcome to C2 Biz Growth Iron Sharpens Iron podcast, where CEOs and entrepreneurs share how they are overcoming business growth and sustainability challenges.
Welcome. I'm your host, John Hale III, and we are excited to have Biyi Oloko as our guest today. He is currently the Executive Vice Chairman for Simeon Limited, a UK-based firm with a portfolio in tech, aviation, maritime, and healthcare. Biyi's passion is talent development, which led him to become the co-founder of Reading Tech Cluster. Biyi's highly successful business career includes blending finance and cutting-edge technologies to drive superior results in both the private and the public sectors. Biyi is a chartered accountant with a track record of turnarounds and serves on numerous boards. Biyi, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much, John. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you here. We just want to jump right into it. Biyi, we see how you're showing up today, Executive Vice Chairman and a co-founder as well. Can you share with us some experiences from your early childhood or the first part of your business career that led to who we see today?
Thank you very much for that, John. And it's a very good question, and it's also good insight, because I always believe that you must go back to Genesis, which is the beginning of everything, to get a sense of how. And so I was born in Nigeria, in a town called Ibadan. Back then, Ibadan was the largest city in Africa, and certainly in West Africa. And it was the capital of many things. It was the first of many things, just kind of setting the scene. Born in the immediate post-colonial era. My dad was a civil servant, so I was born into a family of administrators, and I think maybe that kind of influenced where I am today, because he worked in government, and before he then moved into the private sector. I've worked in the private sector, and I moved over into government, and now back in the private sector again. So there's some kind of maybe genetic flow, if you like.
Yes.
But what underpins what I've achieved today, or my career path today, is my professional background, which is as a chartered accountant, like you said. And interestingly enough, when I set out my studies in the early days, I wanted to be a lawyer. And I'm still thinking about it, to tell you. And so he said, no, I think you should become an accountant, because I come from a family with a background in law. So my dad's a lawyer and an economist. I have aunts and uncles who are in the law profession. So we had enough lawyers in the family. So my dad wanted me to become the first accountant in the family. And so that's how I ended up in the world of accountancy. Now, what makes that quite relevant to where I am today is I never saw accountancy or being a chartered accountant as to become a practicing chartered accountant. I saw it as a stepping stone to move out into consulting and the industry. And one of the great things about being a chartered accountant, and indeed being an accountant, is it gives you an all-round business insight. Because whatever you do in business, you've got to understand that you have to, if you want to report it and measure it, you have to create your accounts. So you cannot be good in what you do in finance if you don't understand accounting, and if you're not a good finance person. Because whatever you do in business, it must end up in the books. And I also got involved in implementing systems as part of my background, which then got me into understanding business processes, so I can see business from the finance perspective in terms of how the numbers get reported and how the numbers are generated. And then I can see the processes that actually drive the business. So to date, I see myself as being industry agnostic, because it doesn't matter what industry you go into. The business processes are pretty much the same. You have an input, you have an output, and your output is either a service or a product. And that's kind of what has influenced my path and my development to date. I'm sure when as in the course of our discussion, I'll be able to shed a lot more, because there's a few decades in that.
Yes, yes, there is. Well, thank you for sharing just that background with us. We at C2 Biz Growth, we have a saying that we've coined that as the eyes are the window to the soul, so are the financial statements window to the soul of a business. And it seems like
Absolutely.
from your process thinking and the way you approach challenges, that's become very useful for you throughout your
Absolutely.
career. Okay.
Absolutely. Because you have to break down in any transaction or in any business opportunity or challenge or problem, you've got to break it down into its components.
Yes.
Where's it coming from? What's the issue? And if you don't understand business processes right across an industry and be able to break it down, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's service, you have to be able to break it down so you can follow through and identify where the problem is. And so, yes, um, it's been very helpful. I would say it's been actually a pillar, the key pillar that has served me both in public sector and in private sector. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you. So as the executive vice chairman at Simeon, can you explain to us the type of assets that you buy, why you choose to buy those assets? What is your process for vetting those purchases or acquisitions? Yeah.
So the interesting thing about that is this has really evolved or developed in the past, maybe like this last 5 years. And that's really come from my time in government. I find that, let me go back a bit just to give you some insights into how, so in the early days of my career, I had an opportunity to be involved in a turnaround for a private equity telecoms infrastructure business. And that opened my eyes to the role of infrastructure in business. Because there's certain things that you've got to have the base, and your infrastructure is the base, whether it's a road, and in telecoms, it's the masts or the towers. I don't know what you say in the US, but on this side of the pond, we use phrases like masts and towers and cell sites. And if you understand how telecom works, when you make a phone call, your equipment sits on top of a tower or lattice tower in some cases, and they have to have line of sight. Without that line of sight, you can't make your calls. And it's just like, I'm trying to recall who discovered this, but when you look at birds in the evening, when you see how they're spaced out, they seem to sit at different places and they communicate to each other. And that's really how wireless telecoms kind of developed. So you understand that without that infrastructure, we can't make our phone calls, we can't do internet and stuff. So that opened my eyes to the fact that that's the area where you want to play. Now, it's a long-term play. It's heavy, but it's critical. Some would even say mission critical, and that's kind of what's informed the areas that we play in. So in aviation, so the thing about aviation and maritime, if you look at the world is essentially 90% water, I think, and 70% of it is oceans. So and of course you've got the cloud, you've got the air all around us. So if you want to move anything from anywhere to anywhere, you've got to go through air or you have to go by sea. And so again, when you talk back to what is the fundamentals, that's where you need to be, because especially in this day of e-commerce and e-business, it means that if you're manufacturing in China and you're selling in Africa, well, how are you going to get your goods to Africa? Or if you're ordering stuff, goods, saying in New York, and it needs to go to DC, then how's it going to get there? So the backbone and the fundamental infrastructure is what excites us, because we think you cannot do without it. And over time, we've had a few, let me say, a foray into that area to try and become relevant. And it's early days for us yet, but we're quite excited about the opportunities in that space. Now, when you now take that to Africa, which is where we want to focus, we've got 54 countries which are not that connected. We don't have enough airlines. We don't have enough airports. We don't have enough major airports. We don't explore the maritime sector that we have, because if you look at Africa is like a big island surrounded by water. So the role of water and maritime is very critical in in the growth and development of Africa. And we are quite excited for what the future brings in that area. So
Right.
that's kind of what guides us, really, John.
That's what guides you. And so then it sounds like from the very beginning, you've had the desire of being a global business in terms of the infrastructure you're talking about. Is clearly not just UK or Europe. You have this desire to be a global company. Are we following you correctly there?
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that, because earlier today, a very close older friend, like a mentor of mine and also my senior in school, he was buried in Nigeria, so I was watching it online, and they kept talking about legacy. One of the things they said about him, in addition to so many things that was said, was that he was the father of internet in Nigeria. So, and I thought to myself, wow, that's legacy. That's history. You see, because John, everybody has a start date. So John Hale born date. What's missing is the end date. And at some point, we're all going to have that end date from to. So the question is, what do you do in between? So I resolved that I want to make a difference. Whatever I do, and we talked about what we do in Reading Tech Cluster, I want to make a difference. But I want the difference to be global, not local. But before you can be a global player, you have to be relevant in your locality. So really, by becoming relevant in your local area, you begin to make an impact internationally. And so, yes, there's a clear plan for global relevance. I was born in Nigeria, in a town called Ibadan. I'm based in the UK, and I'm talking to you in the US. So I think there's some connection there about being relevant and global. And I've looked at the profile of your previous speakers, all eminent professionals. And I don't think there's anyone from the UK in that group yet. So maybe I'm your first transcontinental. So you're part of my global story. Yes, I'd be the second, but the true Brit.
True Brit, yes.
Yeah.
First true Brit, yes.
Yeah. So you're part of my global story. So in the annals of time, when they say, what happened to that man? They say, well, John Hale was the one who exposed him to the US. I hope it's a good thing for you, though. So time will tell.
Time will tell. Yes, yes, it will. So, Biyi, as you've developed your career in this leadership position that you are now, how has your leadership style changed? How are you a better leader today than you were maybe perhaps earlier in your business career?
I have a smile on my face when I said that, because when you say that, and the reason being, I do have a few mentees, and one of the things I tell them, especially if you achieve success at an early age, which I did, is be careful of youthful exuberance. You've got to be mindful that just because you're young and you've achieved doesn't mean you know it all. And if I look back at my time, I think that's one of the things that I was youthfully exuberant, if I can say that. And so now the difference is, one tends to listen. I listen more. I'm a lot more patient. And I guess one of the things is there's nothing new under the sun. That's what the Bible tells us. And so once you understand that there's nothing new, and you just need to sit down, or you need to take a step back and look at the process end to end. So I had the skills because I'm very good at business process mapping, engineering, and things like that. But I was just impatient, John, to be honest. I was impatient for success. I'd set myself some goals of what I wanted to achieve by 40, and I didn't want anything to stop it. But now when you look back, you think, there probably could have been a better pathway to that, and, more listening. So one of the key skills for any leader and anyone aspiring into the boardroom is you need to listen more. Your role in the boardroom, your competence gets you into the boardroom, and that's it. Once you're in the boardroom, it's about relationships, because at the end of the day, it's about motions and it's about votes. And it doesn't matter how good your point is. If you already set enemies and you have bad character, they'll vote against you in the boardroom and you're out. 3 votes to 1, and that's it. So you have to be patient. You've got to listen. And just accept that any leader is competent If you're a leader of people, you've done something right. But what keeps you out there is your ability to listen, empathize, and just keep people, bring them along. There's a lot of emphasis on, we use the phrase carrying people along. It's very, very important for leaders. And in the military, it's what happens. People follow the
Right.
leader.
Right. Well, that's true. And can you speak a little bit more, follow up on that point that you made there about carrying people, carrying them along, and then how does that impact the culture of your of the company as well?
So carrying people along means that one thing for you to carry people along is you've got to listen, and then people need to trust you. People trust you not necessarily because you're good at what you do, but because you are honest and transparent. If you're honest and transparent, you will carry people along, because at the end of the day, John, everyone knows that we're all human beings and we all make mistakes. Now, the question is, why did you make the mistake and what have you learned from it? If you've learned nothing from that mistake, then if you've learned nothing from that mistake, then that's a problem, right? But if you've learned something from it, then that's great. And that's where carry people along works, because you don't dwell on the mistakes. You need to, and you first must accept that, yes, people make mistakes, because there's the adage that says people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. We all live in glass houses, right? So, over there in the US, you have, we call American football. We have the real football here. We call it soccer, but we call it football. But everyone is the best manager sitting on the sideline, right?
Right.
Get in the game and then see what it's like. It's a different ball game. But if you have little experience of what it's like on the field, you're not likely to be a good manager. And that's the essence of, understanding about mistakes, what really happens. And then you encourage. Leadership is about encouraging people. So when you carry people along, you need to encourage them. And they need to believe in you, because you listen to them. We all have problems, but, you have to manage people's problems as well. Not necessarily bring it to the office, but, listen, empathize. For me, that's the difference. I listen more now. I empathize more, and somehow people gravitate towards me. I also do a bit of politics, which you can talk about later, which is very relevant in leadership.
Go ahead. Why don't we follow on that now then?
Yeah, you see, so I'm a counselor here in the UK. I don't know what you can align that with in the US. Maybe House of Rep or whatever. But at a local level, I'm part of I'm a part of the administration, if I say, although we are in opposition right now. But the key thing about that, John, is that you have to get people to vote for you. And you have to go on. So what we do is, you go out and you knock on doors and you tell people why they should vote for you. Now, picture this. You'll go out and you have to knock on doors of people you've never met before, and you want to convince them to vote for you, and they don't really know you. And you probably only have 2 minutes, if you're lucky, to get your message across. So how are you going to do that? So there's so many ways that's done. And first impression counts for a lot, John, as we know. When people go for interviews, they said the decisions made, about 90-something% of your appearance on how they see you. Imagine you're in a party and somebody walks in, looks pretty ragged. A first impression is, oh, maybe he's in the wrong place or she's in the wrong place. And then you find out, oh no, that's some big star. But the first impression is, oh, I don't want to be seen next to that. And that's what happens. So part of leadership is people need to see you and understand that this is somebody I can relate with. So there's an aspect of connecting, if I can say that. You have to be able to connect with the people that you work with. Now, connecting is a skill. It's not a science, it's a skill. And I think there's a gift there. I think there's a divine gift in being able to connect. You talked about, eyes being the gateway to the soul and the accounts being the gateway to the business. Now, the eyes say a lot about people. If you look at people, you can pretty much tell what they look like. And in my latter years, I think I've become a lot better at looking at people's eyes and being able to have a
Mm-hmm.
better assessment of their character. So it's the same way, you have to be able to look people in the eyes. Simple things about connecting with people. It's how you look them in the eyes, how you talk to them, how you engage with them. And so when you look at the world of politics and government and how you go out and you meet people, in your first two sentences,
Mm-hmm.
you must connect.
Yes.
So when you succeed, when you are elected, that means you have successfully connected with all those people who believe in you
Mm-hmm.
to vote for you. There's a party approach to it as well, which you have little control over. But I can give you an example. Now,
Yes.
one of the things that I did in my first election, was I made sure that I knocked on every door in my
Mm-hmm.
district. Now, I knocked on some doors and, oh, hello, my name is Biyi. I'm running for a councillor. And the woman said, I can't believe this. You knocked on my door. No one's knocked on my door ever.
Mm-hmm.
You sound like a nice person. You
Right.
sound like a nice person. You
Right.
look like a nice person.
Right.
You knocked on my door. I'm going to vote for you. Sound like, look like. And so the you knock on my door aspect of it is determination and drive. Because I resolved that I was going to knock on every door. Some of my opposition or other people didn't do that. So there's something about the edge, about going the extra mile. And sometimes when you go the extra mile for people, they trust you more because they think if you can go the extra mile for me, I mean, you must be good for the business or you must be good for government. So all those things kind of align when you are leading people, and because you asked about how you carry people along. That is how you carry people along.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Because it comes back to the old adage. Sometimes when you meet someone the first time, look them in the eye and give them a nice firm handshake to let them know who you are.
Absolutely.
So that they take you seriously. And it distills that when you look someone in the eye that way, you mentioned about the eyes, that means that you actually value them and their input and who they are as a person. You're not just, they're not one of many people standing in the crowd. Right?
Yeah, I mean, John, if you're talking to somebody and he's on the phone, I mean, you just think they're not interested in what I'm saying. And straight away your body language changes. So, your first impression counts for a lot because that first impression lives long after. Most people remember the first time they met you.
Yes.
And if you leave a good impression, that impression follows you through. And if you leave a bad impression, it follows you through. Because even if somebody else says, oh, but he's a good guy, well, that guy says, well, no, to me, it's not. And that's it. Decisions are made about you when you're not in the room. So the impressions you leave with people matters because you don't know when they're going to make that decision about you.
Right.
And in government and politics, that counts for a lot. Same thing in business as well.
Yes.
It counts for a lot.
Thank you for mentioning that. The fact that decisions are made about you when you're not in the room. And so you need to have a positive just impact. And thank you for sharing your leadership style and ways to build trust as well. And one follow-up question I had related to that, particularly from a business standpoint, is when you're mentoring people and you're sponsoring people, can you explain the difference or how you think about that process of, do I have a mentor or do I have a sponsor?
Mentor or sponsor. For me, that's 6 and half a dozen.
Okay.
Because when you mentor someone, you're guiding them. I guess when you're sponsoring them, you can sponsor someone without mentoring them. But I think you can mentor someone without sponsoring them. But I don't think you can sponsor someone without mentoring them, because sponsorship is about, I need you to do something and I want to push you to do something and I want to help you to do something. So there's a shaping of that individual. There's a support system that's built into that. But the mentorship is just a pure mentoring. I want you to develop. I want to share with you some of my experience. I want to build your character. But I don't necessarily, sponsorship is specific. I think mentoring is more general. That's how I would look at it from my experience. I've done a lot of work with founders, entrepreneurs, startup companies. And I think most of the founders need to be mentored.
Yes.
Because everybody thinks their idea is the greatest. until, it's like this adage that says that everybody thinks they're a good fighter until they get the first punch.
Yes.
and then you sit up. So it's the same thing with ideas. You think your idea is the greatest and it's going to make you most money. And then when you start to ask certain questions, then they realize that, well, maybe it's not as great as I thought. So it's the same thing with mentorship. It's about how you help them. But when you sponsor someone, you're pushing them into a particular role, you're helping them into a particular role, but you also have to be some kind of a mentor to ensure they're successful. Right. That's how I would, that's my approach to the difference.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And you'd mentioned being on the boards and working with startups. From your experience, can you share with our audience, because I'm sure there's many entrepreneurs and CEOs that are listening that have challenges just raising capital, finding a financial partner, if you will, to help them grow their business. What can they do to better position themselves, be it tactics or strategy or something else, to be able to raise money?
Yeah, there's a scientific way to raise money. And that's a typical, your idea, you put your deck together and then you start to pitch and you send your papers out to different people and you wait for their responses. That's the scientific way. You follow through the steps. The real way is your network. And it's taken me a while to realize that. And I tell my young daughter, who's currently in university, that do not underestimate the value of your network. Your net worth is your network. See, yes. I can pick up the phone and say, John, I have an opportunity. What do you think? And you would listen to me. Mm-hmm. But if I didn't know you and I sent you an email, it's just another email on the back of many emails that you're going to read. Or you might forward it to your assistant to review, who takes a look at it and says, no, So that's the difference for me in when you want to raise capital. Now, the question is, well, if I don't have a network, what do I do? You need to go and find somebody. That's when you need to go and look for mentors. You need to go and find sponsors who are going to help you. Recall I said earlier that decisions are made about you when you're not in the room. So the challenge is you need to find out which rooms are relevant to you and who are the players in those rooms. Now, I use rooms in a very loose sense. So a room could be a family office, a room could be a room full of angel investors, could be a room full of private equity, but we've got to find them. You talked about Eric, you've got to find people like that. And they receive thousands of emails every day. They have a standard process that you go through. But if you're having coffee with somebody like that, which brings me on to Reading Tech Cluster, why I was very passionate about that, is because there are many things that what's the word I'm looking for? Many things that negate, maybe that's not so much the right word, but they agitate against success. Now, I found that it was very difficult for people who look like me to raise capital. So that's what led me into the world of starting an accelerator. That's what led me into the world of going into venture capital. That's what led me into the world of doing what I do right now, because it was difficult to raise money. Now, Reading Tech Cluster came about because difficulty to put a deal together. I was looking at a pharmaceutical opportunity in Africa. I live in Berkshire, the real Berkshire, not Berkshire, Philadelphia, Berkshire, England. And I was trying to make that deal. I called it Made in Berkshire, but I couldn't find the players to put together, from the advisors to the venture. I just couldn't put the players together. So what that told me was that there's a lot of work to be done. Now, over time, Made in Berkshire evolved into what is now Reading Tech Cluster, which is now called, and the theme for Reading Tech Cluster is connecting the ecosystem, because Reading and Berkshire is noted for its we call it the Silicon Valley of the UK, the Berkshire Thames Valley area. So we have that pedigree, but we were just not connected. So that passion, when I started out what I called in the Made in Berkshire project, I couldn't get anyone participate in it. And then subsequently I became the president for the Thames Valley Society of Chartered Accountants, right? Now, why is that relevant? I'm the first Black person to be the president of Thames Valley Society of Chartered Accountants. But more importantly, I now use that office to birth what we now know as Reading Tech Cluster. And I was able to find a couple of people to support me in that venture. One of them had done some work in Silicon Valley, so he knew what we were trying to achieve. And so we were able to come together through the use of that office. Now, why is that story relevant? The story is relevant because me as myself was finding it very difficult to put this same structure together. But when I became president in the office of the president of the Society of Chartered Accountants, there's over 6,000 members of that district society. I was able to use that office to galvanize support to birth what started out as Made in Berkshire to now become Reading Tech Cluster. Now, in the course of that journey, I will not name the bank, but it's a European bank. And then I was a vice president of the society, and I went there. They had sponsored the society in the past, so they were not unknown to us, and we were not unknown to them. I kid you not, John. They did not come out to see me. That's a true
so then
story.
how did you handle that disappointment? I mean, that disappointment, previous supporter would not acknowledge you, would not see you. How did you handle that disappointment, that challenge, and kind of how did you work around it?
Do you want the real truth?
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, the first thing that hits you is that, wow, this is real. But then, you dust off, because anyone who says they don't dust off, they're not telling you the truth. So you dust off and you think, right, how are we going to tackle this situation? Of course, I have an office, so it's not me. I wasn't the one rejected. It was the office that was rejected. So I just took it back to the office and said, look, you, this is what happened. So you go and talk to them and come back to me. And of course, they spoke to them and they came back to me and they said, well, it was a bit of a misunderstanding, yada, yada. Well, but the point was made. And so the thing is, John, is that the office and the individual matter. The office, you can use your office. We talk about relevance and being a global player. It's really about how you use your office. Whether you call me executive vice chairman or chief dog's body or whatever, it's about how you use the office. Because even the president of whichever country, it's not about the individual, it's about the office.
Yes.
So the question is the person in the office, how are they going to use the office to make a difference? And so you look across the world and you see different stories and different manifestations of how countries, of how businesses have evolved. And the difference there being is how have the individuals in those offices used those offices? But if you don't have a vision for the office that you want to step into, then that's a problem, because when you get in there, you're going to mess up. You're going to do all kinds of things. So that's how I dealt with that situation, by reverting into the office. And, I don't like to talk about Cllr being an impact, but it's real, right? And we make no mistake about it. It's real. And that's, when we talk about impressions, the first thing people see about you is your color. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to accept it or not, that's the first thing. And different people take different views about your color. So you get into a room and somebody will say to you, but where do you really come from? Why would you ask me that question? I say, I'm British. He said, yeah, but where do you really come from? So when you talk about how do you deal with those kind of situations, it's an everyday occurrence. You just deal with it. For me, as a counselor, I was talking to our former CEO of the council, and so there was an incident, and I said to him that, do you know that every time I go into the supermarket to buy anything, I make sure I get a receipt before I leave the store? Because in this paperless age, now things are a lot better. And he looked at me aghast, like, what do you mean? I never do that. I said, yeah, but I have to, because of past experience. And he paused, reflected, and came back to me 2 days afterwards to apologize for that experience. He said that thing kind of sat with him. To me, it was, look, business as usual. sad, but yeah, but that's the way of the world. Over time, these things have changed. But so he didn't understand. And now, why is that relevant? Because I believe in lived experiences. You cannot give what you don't have. If you don't, that's what experience is. If you don't have it, if it's, whether it's knowledge, whether it's insight, whether it's experience, however you want to call it, which is an aggregation of all those things, you can't mentor people. You can't help people if you don't have it. What are you going to tell them? Are you going to go into Chat GPT and say, how do you mentor someone? And then you get a full list with all the emojis on it. And then you say, oh yeah, this is it. But when you have the real lived experience, then it takes us back to empathy. It takes us back to leadership. So that experience counts for a lot. Now, some people will say, well, I know I'm a successful entrepreneur. I've started a company at 20 and I made it at 22, 23. Yeah. When you get to 40, you look back and think, yes, I made some mistakes. But you can't tell them at that point because they're on top of the world.
Yes. And we talk a lot about leadership today and about mentoring and coaching. And also, could you share with us some experiences or your process from emerging leaders that we all have to be coachable?
Yes.
And have some humility.
Yes.
Because at one point you can have a mentor, but if you're not coachable, we on the other side of that coin, we have our own responsibility in that equation.
Yeah, allow me to just say something from the Bible that talks about, when the word comes, it fell on stony ground, it did fall on fertile ground, and it fell along the way and different things came up. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about being coachable. So if you're not willing to listen, I talked about my youthful exuberance. Right. Part of that was I wasn't listening very well because I thought I was on top of the world. I thought I was making the right decision. I thought I was a business and, CEO. So what can you tell me? That's, and that's the same thing. So you've got to leave yourself open to learning. The only time you stop learning is when you're dead. If anyone says they've stopped learning, then they don't know what they're talking about because we learn every day. I learned from my granddaughter. I learned. So you're right. You must be coachable. And one of the attributes of successful entrepreneurs, successful business people, successful leaders is their willingness to keep learning, to keep evolving. That's one of the things. So, and you can only do that if you're coachable, if you listen. It's one of the things that you probably notice in meetings is if you think you have a better idea, you're almost about to talk over somebody. So before they say A, B, you're already saying but, because you think you know what they're going to say. No. And in the early days, when you go into meetings or when you're being assessed as a group, sometimes the people assessing the group will say, oh, well, but you were too passive. Or you should have come in at that point. Oh, you And I disagree with that approach. I think the best people are the ones who listen. It's not about the quantum of what you say. It's about what you say.
Yeah, the quality of it. Yeah.
And the quality of it. And that's what I think people should listen for. And if you're coachable, you would listen to quality advice and you would recognize quality advice.
Yes.
Because, there's a saying that says, where there's no counsel, where there's no advice, people fall. So that means if you don't listen to advice, then you will fall.
Yes.
That's in the Bible.
Yes. You will learn from the school of hard knocks, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We all are. Yeah.
Yes,
that's experience. That's lived experience. Someone once told me, said, if you want to know what the road looks like, what the journey looks like, talk to those who are coming back. So they can tell you what the road really looks like. Of course, you can plot your route into Google Map and it tells you, oh, you have to go, this. But Google Map will never tell you that, that place, is accident prone. That place, all those issues. When you get to that place, come to that lane because that's experience. That tells you how do you navigate that path to where you want to get to. You have to be talking to those who have, and that's where the mentorship, sponsorship to a certain degree comes into play. Those who are in the rooms, because trust me, John, for them to get into the rooms, they've also been where you've been. So they know what it takes for you to succeed as an entrepreneur, and they know what it takes for you to get into the boardroom. If you know any boardroom, maybe 5, 7, 11, depending on the size of the company, that means there's only 5 people in that boardroom. How many people want to be in that boardroom? Loads of people, tons of people, hundreds of people. But it can only be a certain number of people that will get into the boardroom. So what quality is going to get you into the boardroom? When you get in there, what are you going to be able to do that's so different? The people in that room already are the ones who are going to let you in. And if they're the ones who are going to let you in, it comes back to what I said before. Decisions are made about you when you're not in the room. So who's going to speak for you in the room? Who's going to advocate for you in the room? That's where your sponsors, your mentors, because you asked about entrepreneurs, what should they do? You need to find those people. You need to find those who know how to raise money. If you don't know how to raise money, you need to connect with those people who do know. That's where the challenge is. And that's one of the things Reading Tech Cluster is seeking to address, really, is that gap. Who are those people and how can you connect with them?
Yeah.
But it's not a science. It's an art.
Yes,
Sadly.
yes,
It's
yes.
simple as that.
Yeah, and so with the Reading Tech Cluster that was established, can you share with us when that was established, and where are you now on that journey? And can you share some success stories as well?
We're still in our early stages, so you can probably say that we are still in startup mode. We've only just appointed a CEO to the Reading Tech Cluster. The idea started as far back as 2023, just when we were just coming out of COVID. Like I said, with the Made in Berkshire initiative. And over time, it's now evolved into what is now the Reading Tech Cluster. So we recently set it up. It's now so now we have a formal structure. We have a company, we have a bank account. We've set up the different structures, the advisory group, the board, the observer board. And so we've now put all those instruments in place and the pillars in place to drive it. We've had a couple of events. So I guess you can call those the success stories in terms that but the key thing is the members in the group. For me, the success stories. So if we look at where we are, we have the University of Reading as a key player. So imagine having Stanford University as part of your structure. So we have University of Reading. We have firms like Ernst & Young, Ernst & Young involved. We've got banks involved. We've got we've got venture capitalists involved. We've got Henley Business School involved. So those are all names that connote. Sometimes when I sit in that room and I look at what's happening, I people don't see it, but I do get a bit tearful about it to think, wow, look at where this thing started from. And the irony of it, John, it's not many people know the story. So they just see me as one of the group.
Right.
That's life. But
yes,
it's moving.
It's powerful. It's moving. Powerful. Yes, it is.
It's moving.
And so the idea is you will have companies that will come through there. They will get nurtured and be able to grow and scale through.
Yeah.
Through the tech cluster, through the firms that you have involved.
Yes. So we're discussing the mode of engaging. So we're looking at the memberships at the membership status. But one of the things we're debating at the moment is really how do you want to engage. So you're right. The idea or the intention behind Reading Tech Cluster is to build successful businesses, to build and scale successful businesses, to be the pipe or the signboard or the notice board that directs them to the different places where they need to be. So whether you're looking for an advisor, whether you're looking for money, whether you're just looking for straightforward support, mentorship, you come to Reading Tech Cluster. So it's like the glue that's connecting all the different aspects of the tech ecosystem. You want to come in there with your idea and you want to be able to come out of it with a successful business because your idea is just an idea. And I think it's Accenture, one of those companies that advertises and says, look in your rearview mirror. I'm your idea as you drive past. So there's so many ideas that people have left behind, but here we're not trying to leave too many behind. Reading is already known for tech, but it's not connected. So
Yes.
connection means that if you have a problem, if you have a challenge, what do you do? Come to the
Right.
Reading Tech Cluster. And
Reading
that's
Tech
where
Cluster.
we are at the moment. That's where
Yeah.
we are at the moment.
Okay. And
You know.
BA, can you share with us just a profile for the audience of the type of companies that the tech cluster is looking to attract?
So it can be a startup. That means you're at ideation stage, so you still have an idea. Or you can be a scale up, which means you're already generating revenue and you need to scale I think we're sector. It's called Reading Tech, so there has to be an element of tech in what you do, whichever version of fintech, edutech, agri-tech. So it's about how you use technology. And the interesting thing now is you now have AI. So it's about how you use technology in your business. And so
Right.
tech has to be a part of your business. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If tech is part of it, then you can come to Reading Tech Cluster. For me personally, the door is open to anyone who has an idea, who wants to grow. But more importantly, your business must be within the area, within the region. And that's what Reading Tech Cluster really is about. So any business, we're also looking to make sure we connect with different clusters all over the world. We're connecting with other clusters in the UK.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
That's great.
yeah, so that's what we're looking to do.
For-
We're
for-
just
okay.
we're like a connector. We're
Yes.
connector. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because my next follow-up question was going to be, what if I'm a U.S. company and I want to grow and expand in the UK or in Europe, and I want to be a part of the Reading Tech Cluster? Let's say I want to base part of my operation there. Does that
You'll be
fit
welcome.
what you're looking for? Be welcome. Okay.
Yes, you definitely will be welcome, because
Okay.
part of what we want to do. So I talked earlier that we are known as the Silicon Valley of the UK, but
Yeah.
what has happened over time? So complacency sets in. So you have other parts of the UK who now see this as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity
Yes.
to expand their economy. And because tech is what it is,
Yes.
tech, you can set up anywhere in the world. Once you have
Yeah.
good connectivity,
Yes.
you can be anywhere in the world, and you've got regular power supply. You can do anything you want. So that's what is happening. They're using tech to attract growth in the economy. So
Okay.
there's a bit of trying to recover. So Reading Tech Cluster is trying to recover some of the ground that it's lost. So we're very much open to so we already have some established companies. We've got Oracle, we've got Microsoft. Who else? We've got Pepsi, we've got Huawei. So we've got big tech companies already in the area. So the area is known for, in fact, the history of tech. IBM, going way back, is what brought the Silicon Valley to the UK. The history belongs to IBM, and which has been reflected in the Reading Museum. So if anyone's interested in the history of tech, go to the Reading Museum. Not that I'm plugging Reading Museum, but it's there, the history. Yes. Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing for our audience. Biyi in the UK, India, Pakistan, US, there's an opportunity for you there. Thank you for sharing that. Biyi, I wanted to ask you, can you share with us either a bold move or calculated risk that you took in your business career that didn't turn out as you thought it would? And what lessons did you learn from that experience?
That's a good one. And I wouldn't say it didn't turn out as expected. So in my days of employment,
Yes.
I was working for EY in the UK, and then I got sent to the Nigeria office, to the West Africa office, to help build the enterprise solutions practice. So when I got to Nigeria, after about 6 or 7 months, maybe about a year, I got my state. I remember I said I was born in Ibadan in Oyo State. So the state governor at the time then asked me to come and join his cabinet as a special advisor, which I thought would be, and I still think will be, a fantastic experience.
Yes.
That took me into, and it's probably relevant for what I'm doing today, both on the public sector and on the private sector side. But the experience was very, very different. The experience. So my intention was to go in there, be seconded into that office, do great things in there, and then come back into practice. But when I got in there, I got so absorbed into what I was doing, I didn't come back to practice. So sometimes when I look back, I think, should I have gone back into being part of the consulting firm in EY, and what would I have done? Or do I like, so you kind of ask questions about what was the right path. But I think this was the right path, because coming out of government and the experience stood me in good stead to be able to do a lot of what I want to do today. So what changes when I was transferred, my objective was to build the SAP, Oracle, the ERP practice. But that started but didn't conclude, because I got moved into government. So even though you set out to do something, and I had a clear plan, a clear vision for how I was going to grow that practice, but I got moved into government. Now I had to make a choice. I didn't have to take it.
Right.
But I think everyone at some point in their life, when they're called upon to serve, because really it's a service to state, serving your people.
Yes.
I think we feel honored to be one of the few to be able to sit in such an office and serve the people. In my office then, I was in the budget and planning office as a special advisor, and also ran the ministry, because the commissioner in charge of blessed memory, he did pass. So I ended up running that ministry. The difference between government and between the governor and you and I is the state budget. The state budget is what allows them to be able to do and impact the lives of people. And I was charged with that responsibility of putting that budget together. And that, I think, is one of the greatest honors anyone can get in terms of impacting the lives of people. And on the other side of it, because I did serve him for 2 terms. The governor can only serve for 2 terms, and I served him for 2 terms. And the second term, I was a special advisor for revenue generation. So I was essentially the taxman. Collecting the state revenue. So again, it's the revenue that you collect that helps in that you spend to impact people's lives. So I've been blessed and opportuned to have been a part of that story, to be able to say that I contributed my quota to the development of my state, regardless of what people will say about our governor of blessed memory, the late Ajimobi of blessed memory. He was a great man, really. Great vision, great insight, and very driven. You learn a lot from people like that, you know. So I was opportunity to serve him, to serve my people, but that wasn't the plan.
Right.
The plan was go to Nigeria, build an ERP practice, become managing partner, But that story and that part of my story has influenced what I do in infrastructure, has influenced my views and the insights to what it takes to be able to play in that space, because infrastructure is government's responsibility. So when you play in that space, you need to understand how to engage and how to manage the assets, and the story goes on and on. So you can see there's some kind of, I'd like to say a divine path, because sometimes we set out on a journey, but and that story is relevant and pertinent to founders. And you talked about being teachable and coachable, because the idea that you start with, or that you believed in when you started, is not where you will end up. That's always the case. And you can look at Uber, you can look at Airbnb, and you can look at even the iPhone and all that. What they envisioned is not where they've ended. And each one of them has gone on to make significant impacts, but they were adapting along the way. So any successful entrepreneur, any successful founder must be willing to adapt along the way. They must be persistent. Because I've listened to some of your previous recordings.
Thank you.
Persistent. They must be consistent, right? And they must be focused. If you're not consistent, if you're not persistent, and if you're not focused, there's a young man that I'm mentoring at the moment. And when you talk about adversity and you talk about committed to the cause, he is 200% focused on his objective. He's so driven that I learn how to be driven from him. Yet I'm supposed to mentor him.
Yes.
He's so focused on his objective, and he's adapting along the way. I mean, if you can imagine the kind of adversities that he's encountered on his journey, it's remarkable to see. This is somebody who has slept on the streets of Lagos for his vision. So I don't know how many people can sleep on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, as a founder. I don't know, but this guy did, because he has a vision for his project. I'll keep that on the back burner for now. Maybe later we talk about it. But
yes,
for me, that's the definition of driven.
Right.
I learned from that. So you can see that everything is connected. If you set out along the path, you must be adaptable, but you also must to remain focused, and you must persist in the journey. So it's like one of my favorite movies, The Founder, which is the story of McDonald's. And this is about the man behind it. His name is Ray Kroc. And he was a salesman, and he used to listen to this. Back then it was records. They didn't have CDs and things like that. And I think on the record it says, talent counts for nothing. It says you must be persistent, you must be consistent, and you must be focused. I think there's something else it said. But the two words, consistent and persistent and driven, sit at the heart, because you can buy talent.
Yes.
But you can't buy consistency, you can't buy driven, you can't buy persistence. Persistence is a baby who wants to climb on a table, and you say don't, but they keep going back, and they don't stop until they've climbed it. So what happens to that baby between that age and by the time they get to 20 or 30? What stops them? What are those things along the way that makes them lose that persistence, lose that drive? That's a mystery.
Right.
But that's a story. That's a story for another day.
Yes. No, but thank you for sharing those powerful lessons there. And I get a sense of your passion for being a mentor. And when you talked about legacy, I see the through line in our conversation of your sense of passion, of mission, of being a mentor, and being able to grow and scale these fledgling companies through the tech cluster. So those themes really come through here in our conversation. So thank you for sharing that.
No, I was going to say, listening to that, the eulogies and the tributes earlier today, kind of for me was like a repurposing moment or a refocusing moment. It just make you focus on what's important, what's relevant, not to be bothered about what knocks you down, because you get knocked down in life.
Amen.
But you got to get up, dust it off, and carry on. You asked me about that experience. You just got to rise up, dust it off, and you got to move on. Right. That's the difference. And however you're going to do it, just do it.
Right. Gotcha. No, thank you for sharing that. And Biyi, my last question to you is going to be, what do you think your superpowers are or special talents? And how did you learn to develop those? Or how'd you discover what it was?
I thought you might ask that question about superpowers. I don't know if I have superpowers or not, but I tell you what I know. And what I know is this, that it doesn't matter what situation you put me in. Because I spent a lifetime solving problems. One of the things my friends used to say, and I didn't realize that, because he said, when I became a counselor, he said, well, I'm not surprised you're a counselor, because back in the day, you always used to write letters complaining about many things. So I have a template to complain, so whatever the issue is, I have a template. I just,
Yeah.
plug it
Yeah.
in and send it off. And I always get a response. So I think what I'm good at, and I think I'm very good at it, is solving problems. It doesn't matter what the problem is. I can see through how to navigate through any business problem. Because one has had experience, maybe it's age, but let's put it down to experience, that there's nothing new under the sun. And when you've seen everything, when you've got to a point in your life where you don't even have one penny in your pocket, and you got a ton of bills, there's nowhere else to go, but you got to fight your way back. Right. So that makes you think about how do you find your way back. So I think I'm very good at being able to find my way back. My experience in turnarounds. Now people say when I get involved in a turnaround, that how do you do it? I say, well, maybe it's a gift. But the two things you look for in that situation, what's the problem? And then you fix it. So in a particular situation, the business had a lot of debts, but wasn't collecting it, or didn't have the will to collect it. So I started collecting the money, which helped the working capital, which helped us to start bidding for work, which revived the business. So you ask yourself, but didn't they see it? Well, I don't know, but I saw it and I moved on it. Another situation was where this company was a conglomerate. One of my turnarounds for the PE was a conglomerate. It had a lot of industrial businesses, compressors, generators, facilities management, but they were just disparate businesses. So, and I saw an opportunity in infrastructure management. So if you bring all those skills together, you already have the platform for being a major infrastructure player. Now, didn't they see it? I don't know, but I saw it. And I took that business created a new business out of it and took it from zero to billions of naira, from nothing. So you asked the question, what is a superpower? Well, that's how I read it, because if they didn't see it and I see it, then it must be me that sees it. Right. And I think if you look at the Reading Tech Cluster, the challenges that we faced and what it is today, I started it out as what I call made in Berkshire. The objective was I want the lawyers, the bankers, the consultants to all be resident in Reading. Yes. That was the vision and that was the mission. But it didn't happen. But I didn't give up. 2023, here we are, 2025, 26, Reading Tech Cluster is born. Did they not see it? Didn't they know that Reading was not connected? I don't know, but I saw it and I wanted to do it. And God's so good, I was able to do it. So I think whatever one does, I don't want to claim, because I'm not going to claim the glory. The glory belongs to God. And he's the one who's put this thing in me that keeps me, that, my wife sometimes says to me, why do you like these difficult turnaround situations, a company that's failing? You just want to go and dive headlong into it and bring it out. I just love doing it. I love seeing things grow. I love turning things around and making them blossom. I think it's quite exciting, Yes. So that's what I enjoy doing, John. And I don't know if that's my superpower or not, but that's it.
Well, it sounds good to me. Well, BA, we want to thank you for being our guest today on C2 Biz Growth.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure sharing some of my thoughts. Yes. I hope it's been worthwhile.
Definitely.
But now I'm now part of your transcontinental story now.
Yes. We look forward to it. And also would love to thank our audience for listening for this episode of C2 Biz Growth, Iron Sharpens Iron. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the C2 Biz Growth, Iron Sharpens Iron podcast. And check us out on social media, share, and subscribe.